Dolphins. Best way to describe it.
Well, I mean, look, in my opinion, it is the cloudiest postseason coaching carousel that I've ever seen. You look at Minnesota. Does Minnesota have any idea? I don't think Minnesota has any idea. Chicago. Would Chicago love it if Jim Harbaugh cost $6 million a year? Yes. Does Chicago want to pursue?
Let's go
Jim
one by
Harbaugh
one. Let's go one by one. Whoa. Time out. Let's go one by one. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. Let's just focus on the Dolphins. Give me the best way to describe the Dolphins. Let's start with that one, and then we'll move through the rest.
All right. The Dolphins right now, at least in my opinion, Mike, the Dolphins right now want a conciliatory voice who can make Tua Tagovailoa into a great quarterback. Because I believe that they saw enough this year to think that we are going to try. We're going to try to get Tua fixed and to get him ready to play again this year. Now, only Chris Greer knows right now. He's the only person I think who knows. And obviously, Stephen Ross. If Deshaun Watson gets his stuff straightened out before the draft this year, and if he's available with, say, who knows, a 6-game suspension, I don't know, if they still are going to be interested in doing that. But as of now, whoever gets this job has to get this job figuring that they are going to work with Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, the only way Tua is getting fixed is if it involves a certain snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. I don't think Tua is going to magically become better because there's some coach out there that is smitten with the idea of making Tua Tagovailoa into the franchise quarterback he's never going to be. Good morning, Tuanon. Thank you for entering the chat. But I think the best way to describe the Dolphins' vacancy, frankly, is the least desirable because of the dysfunction, because of the fact that Stephen Ross doesn't live and work in South Florida, because he's in a position where he can be manipulated by the people who whisper into his ear in the luxury suite while the coach is busting his ass trying to coach the team. Look, a lot of stuff's being blamed on Brian Flores, and I think it's funny when you see the people who cover the Dolphins for a living and who will continue to cover the Dolphins, no matter who the owner, the coach, the GM are, parroting the talking points that the Dolphins are clearly putting out there. It's not surprising. It's a little depressing that you don't see more independent thought from these people, but they have a vested interest in continuing to grease the wheels of the machine in South Florida that is the Miami Dolphins. But I between the Dolphins and the Texans, if I was a coach with options, Peter, I would say, no way. I'm not interested. I'll go somewhere else. So for me, the best way to describe the Dolphins' job from a coach's perspective is undesirable.
I don't deny that, but let me just say one other thing. You know, I do think that both things are possible in Miami. That Brian Flores was a lousy communicator who bizarrely employed 10 combined offensive coordinators, offensive line coaches, and quarterback coaches in 3 seasons. I mean, what is that all about? You know, so, and he's also a guy who kept this team together after some horrible losses, you know, including getting on a plane and flying 7 hours home from London after losing to the friggin' Jaguars. He somehow kept this team together to win 7 in a row and to enter the last fortnight of the season with a chance to make the playoffs. So, you know, this is one of those things where, you know how Jerry Seinfeld goes, oh, damn it, I don't know what to think. You're seeing quarters at Wurtsboro. You're seeing squirrels. You're seeing, I don't know what to think of anymore. and that's exactly what I think about the Dolphins. I don't know what to think. But I don't think Brian Flores leaves here as any sort of aggrieved victim. I think he played a part in his demise.
Well, the fact that there's a sense of clamoring for Brian Flores suggests that nationally the sense is it was more about the Dolphins than it was about Flores, and that's kind of been the case down there, all in large part because Stephen Ross doesn't show up for work every single day, and he isn't there to understand what's going on in the building. He's in not much of a better position than you or me to understand why there were 10 different offensive coordinators and offensive line coaches and whatnot, because he's up in New York City all the time focusing on his primary business and not moving his business operations center. He doesn't have to be micromanaging, but just be there in the building. Do your work out of the building so you're around, so you can, have lunch with these folks and talk to these folks and get a sense of what's really happening. In Minnesota, I don't have much of a sense of what's happening. Let's go through these quickly. Look, the Wilfs have a great stadium, great facility. They're willing to authorize significant expenditures, even for middle-of-the-road quarterbacks. If they can line the planets up right, this may not be an unattractive coaching position. It all depends on what they do by way of GM first, though. Peter, do you agree?
Yes, but I also think that there's something hanging over both of these hires, and that is, what are you going to do about Kirk Cousins? $35 million a year this year, and then what? Okay? And so my feeling is the biggest question, and the question that if I am the Wilfs, that I'm asking both general manager candidates and coaching candidates, how do you feel about Kirk Cousins? Should we re-sign him to 3 years, $120 million? What do we do there? Or do we go prospecting for a new quarterback? What do we do? And that, to me, is as big a question as the GM and coach.
The last time I remember the Vikings, there's been a couple of times the Vikings have been looking for a coach the same time one of their division rivals was looking for a coach. In 2006, it was Childress to Minnesota and McCarthy to Green Bay. In 1992, it was Holmgren to Green Bay and Dennis Green to Minnesota. Both times it worked out in favor of the Packers because each of those guys won a Super Bowl. Now the Bears are also looking for a coach and a GM. And again, we got to move through these, but give me your quick sense on the Bears coaching vacancy.
I think the most logical thing for the Bears is, look, you got Bill Polian advising them. This is almost too easy. But Bill Polian has always thought, going back to Indianapolis days, that Jim Caldwell should have retained that job a lot longer than he did. And I think he comes in saying, hey, listen, let's calm the waters and teach the quarterback. This guy had a winning record in Detroit, for crying out loud. Just take Jim Caldwell and don't overthink it.
Yeah, I know Tony Dungy's been pushing Jim Caldwell for Jacksonville, but I think it would make sense in Chicago as well. Denver's an interesting situation for me because the team is being sold. They're waiting to announce it until after they hire the coach. The team's being sold. They have everything but the quarterback, and George Payton is running the show here, picking a coach. This could be a good destination if you're willing to sign on. It's to sign on, given the possibility that someone who buys the team walks through the door and you hate them and they hate you.
Hey, look, that's not going to happen. I mean, it would be bizarre if it did happen. But they're going to have somebody who is going to come in and say right away, I don't care how much it costs. Find me a quarterback and find him now. And I think if you are, and this is not out of left field, but it's kind of out of center field, okay? If you are Aaron Rodgers, you're looking at Denver and you're saying, here's a team right now with 3 really good young receivers. Now, they may have to trade one to get me, but they're going to have at least 2 good receivers. They got a left tackle. They've got a lot of cap money. They got a really smart general manager, and they got an owner who's going to come in with more money than God. And for the next 3 or 4 years, if I really do want to leave Green Bay, and I don't know if he does, I don't know if he doesn't. And I applaud Aaron Rodgers, by the way, for not throwing out a bunch of breadcrumbs other than to saying, I'm getting along with Brian Gutekunst, and my decision's going to be quick. Okay, that's all he has said. But anyway, if I am Aaron Rodgers and I'm looking at this situation, I'm saying, if I want to leave Green Bay, and maybe he doesn't, probably he doesn't, but if I want to leave Green Bay, best place in the NFL right now is the Denver Broncos.
And whether it's Rodgers or someone else, it's a very attractive landing spot. And this is a subject probably for another Friday. But if I'm Aaron Rodgers and I'm looking at 2 new head coaches in my division, and one guy who's entering his second year who's looking for a bunch of kneecap biters on his team, I'm probably sticking around in the NFC North. I can run that division a lot more easily than I can run the division with Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes and the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, as to the Raiders, quickly on them, I feel like Rich Bisaccia has already earned the job. But I don't get the impression that he's gotten any indication he's getting the job. Now, they're still going to have to go through the full search whenever their season ends. But how do you say to the locker room and the fan base that the guy that somehow steered us through some of the worst dysfunction and adversity a team has seen, how do you say this guy doesn't stick around at least for a year or two? Give him a David Culley year and see what he can do.
Tell you what I'm hearing, Mike. I'm hearing that Mike Mayock loves Rich Bisaccia and really wants him to stick around for 2022, thinks they make a good team together, egoless guy coaching the team. And Mike, I don't know if you saw it yesterday, 7-second snippet on Twitter of Zay Jones cupping Rich Bisaccia's face in his hands and saying, "Hey, you're doing a good job." I mean, totally unprompted and whatever. It was like a touching moment. And my feeling is he's got that locker room, and he's got a locker room of guys who really would like to see him get this job. So, but we'll see what happens. I've always thought that Mark Davis loves billboards. And what would be better than billboards on the strip with Jim Harbaugh's picture on it? But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, and I can understand why Mike Mayock would be leaning toward Bisaccia, because if Harbaugh comes to town, first order of business may be no more Mayock, or if Mayock stays, there's going to be a lot of Pepto-Bismol and Tums in Mylanta consumed by Mike Mayock while working with Jim Harbaugh. That's for damn sure. Last one, the Jaguars. Trent Balke's there, and that seems to be an impediment to them getting the true A-listers, if there are any. It feels like it's maybe pointing toward Bill O'Brien. I don't know how O'Brien and Balke are going to coexist, but O'Brien may not care. I mean, he won multiple power struggles in Houston. Maybe he figures if I go to Jacksonville, it's just a matter of time before I take over there too.
Look, whoever it is, and you hear that both O'Brien and Caldwell are kind of the leaders in the clubhouse right now, what is very clear right now is that Shad Khan wants somebody to come in and just to mentor his quarterback. That's what they want. They want the quarterback to look like he did in Week 18 every week. And he didn't this year. But you can see the progress being made. And the only way that I might say, don't go with a veteran guy to try to teach your quarterback, is if I could get a guy like Josh McDaniels or Kellen Moore, who I really trusted, to coach my quarterback one-to-one, 8 hours every day, at least through the offseason. I do think a veteran coach is probably much more likely.
Well, they ain't getting Kellen Moore. There's no way Jerry's letting Kellen Moore get away from Dallas. Whatever it takes, he's keeping him around to be the successor to Mike McCarthy, I believe. But, as you were explaining Bill O'Brien versus Jim Caldwell, I cannot imagine a sharper contrast in coaching styles. And I think because O'Brien's very in-your-face, F-bomb, hard coaching, and Caldwell is more of the Tony Dungy soft touch, easy hand. And the fact that they're rebounding from a guy who's far closer to O'Brien on the spectrum of hard coaching to soft touch, I think even though the signs seem to be pointing toward O'Brien, when you look at that style, I think Caldwell maybe have an edge there, because Shad Khan's going to be thinking, I don't want another Urban Meyer. Even if Bill O'Brien's not going to be like Urban Meyer, he's already been burned once by having that more dynamic and loud and just there constantly coaching hard and in a guy's face. And they saw that and they didn't like it and they moved on. We're going to move on. As I mentioned earlier, the Giants get their own segment.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.